Um, just a couple things. This week you're working on. I kind of gave you time to. I know you're working through a lot of things, all the assessments. I had the stress assignment, and of course, this week I put in the follow up to the SSS software, and those are all due this weekend. The one assignment I made optional, basically, and I would recommend doing it because it'll help you with your Ewing paper you want to turn in. But that assignment, what it does is it takes all the assessment you've been doing and kind of you record your results and your interpretation for yourself. And I would be happy if you do that to look over them for you and just to double check if any of you have questions. So I decided eventually to make that optional rather than turning it in. And then next week we're going to be face to face. There's going to be a session where we're going to work on a skill on two different skills. One is presentation skill, which was part of this class, and we work it in. I usually work it in the face-to-face classes, but I have a professor who teaches communication, and you for half the class next week you'll be working with her on presentation skills information. Then the other half of the class you'll be with me. So I'm going to split the class into two groups of five, and we'll be working on influence in a group exercise. And so next week should be interesting. And that when I see that in 2 weeks, I will finish up chapter 4, and then we'll move on from there. But before I get started, does anyone have any questions on the assignments? And I hope everything's been understandable so far to date. Anyone have any questions? Well, if you think of them as we go along, uh, just jump in and ask. All right.
For the I
Yeah.
got a quick question. The managing personal stress assignment, you just looking for like a paragraph for each one of those like sections in it basically,
Yeah,
or
pretty much. You do what was asked on them. I think I'd asked you to take the various assessments and a lot of times, what do they mean for you now? Uh,
Mhm.
what might the implications be? So yeah, that's basically what I'm looking for. Just addressing what the questions are and anything you might want to add for yourself. A lot of times people, all these skills and things we're talking about in here are going to hit each of you slightly differently. Uh, for some of you, that's something I really want to work on, where others of you might say, well, I feel pretty good about how I'm doing that. A lot of times in this class, there are stress related skills that people try and improve. There's time management and some other kinds of things. And does that answer it, Matt? But it really, as long
Yeah,
as you need to really do to cover everything in it.
got it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. Let me get started. I'm going to bring up some slides, and I'll make these slides available. Um, this whole area, this whole segment is on solving problems analytically and creatively, is one way of thinking of it. Decision making is another way of thinking of it. That first exercise I gave you on the SSS software really was a lot of decision making, and part of it is it's thinking about your decision making style. Some of the things you might have been familiar with, others where you weren't. A lot of times in making decisions, you have to decide, should I involve other people or not? But let me just start in the beginning. There's two types of knowledge that we begin to get. Um, Explicit knowledge is knowledge that you easily learn through a book or in a classroom. Uh, Explicit knowledge is you go to Wikipedia, you ask Gemini on uh, whatever. So you're just trying to gain knowledge. It's you get through learning. Tacit knowledge is knowledge that you get uh, based on your experience. You've been in a job for a long time. You have a certain knowledge base that's almost innate to you. And sometimes it's impossible to articulate all the knowledge and experience you have. And a lot of times that is job or situation specific. So knowledge, the knowledge base you have uh, has an impact on ultimately problem solving and decision making you do. And it, as I said, it leads to some individual decision making. Uh, one type of decision making is programmed. If you have expert knowledge, and you can recognize the problem right away. This is what consultants do, or experts that come in. It's your decision making is almost instinctual. Uh, I've had 20, 30 years of experience of working with business schools around the world. And I can almost walk into a situation and almost instinctually know what I need to know or what I need to find out to determine if a quality program is happening. And a lot of that is experience that's built in. Non-programmed decisions are decisions where you're not the expert and you can't make a decision without further information. And this is where that rational decision-making model comes into play. Now, I'm not going to go through this in depth with you. I find the rational decision-making model is a great decision model, a great structure to use when you're making decisions. Uh, the in in the Canvas module, I put there's four videos in there from a professor, Jim Smither, who goes in detail with each of these steps. And I would encourage you to listen to them if you have the interest in one or the other of the various aspects of rational decision making. You see this in one form or another in most organizations. Basically, this model is you you define what the problem is, you generate different kinds of alternative solutions, you evaluate a lot of alternatives, and then you implement and evaluate them. Sounds pretty rational, sounds pretty simple. It's a great model, but it does have its limitations and complications that uh, the rational decision making model says that you should identify the problem through thorough examination. A lot of times, one of the biggest difficulties organizations have is defining what the problem actually is. And sometimes the problem may be complicated. And one of the things we do is try and boil it down to something that's easily understood. And we say, okay, this is complicated. Well, here's something that I understand easily that sounds like the problem. And so sometimes you get in trouble by not being able to identify the problem thoroughly. And then it says that we should have an exhaustive list of alternatives. However, sometimes that's tough to do. Generally, what we do, and what we're talking about human nature, uh, we tend to find alternative solutions that are pretty straightforward. or maybe similar to what we're doing now. And and so, we find something that looks like it might fit. Again, that's what these are boundaries we put on our rationality in decision making. We're supposed to uh, evaluate alternatives. The evaluation process of alternatives should come uh, when we have all the alternatives we want to choose from. A lot of times we evaluate each alternative as soon as we think of it. And sometimes we pick one that seems to be a solution. Think about shopping for a car for a minute. And if you apply the rational decision-making model, you say, okay, I want a car that's good on gas mileage and different kinds of things in this price range. And I have these 5 dealers I'm going to go to. So you go to the first dealer, you find a car that you fall in love with and buy it. Well, you didn't develop a list of alternatives. You didn't evaluate the alternatives. We do this all the time. We find something that fits and we make a quick decision. And then we're supposed to get accurate information in decision making. And sometimes the information is distorted. Like in the SSS case, the president secretary sent you all that information on people. Is it accurate or not? Is it distorted? And what we're supposed to do is pick the best. Sometimes we pick the first acceptable alternative. It's like the car example. So these are just I love the rational decision making model when you're thinking about a problem you have to get after, but there are biases that happen when we do that. Uh, Another pitfall is decision paralysis. A lot of times, the more complex the number of alternative you have causes a paralysis in decision making. There was a great research done in a department store where where they had people trying to and they had these jams on sale, and they had 20 different flavors of jams for people to choose from. And then part of the study was a limited number of jams. People still had to make a choice, and people had difficulty choosing uh, who were choosing on the more complex numbers. It's just that the more numbers we have, the more difficult it is. For example, 401k plans in organizations. There may be so many to evaluate, it drives you nuts. Or if you're old enough for Medicare, there's all these acceptable Medicare options, and the numbers are overwhelming, and it leads to decision paralysis. Speed dating is another one. Uh, the number of alternatives that flash by. So sometimes you get a decision paralysis and can't make a decision, an issue that happens in decision making. I didn't want to spend too much time on the rational decision making model, but one of the things I ask you to do if you started to do the assessments, I uh, I ask you to analyze for yourself in the assessments some of your creative or innovative styles. And the reason I like to ask you to do that is because I think we're more creative than we may give ourselves credit for. Uh, and I kind of want to expand a way for you of thinking about creativity. Most people assume that creativity is one dimensional. And sometimes I think of, oh, creative people. I think of artists or architects or, inventors or things like that, entrepreneurs. And that's not for me. And creativity is more than one dimensional. And each of us, I believe, have creative elements that we can draw on. Um, And almost all of us have blocks that inhibit our creativity. We have biases and blocks that we've learned over time. Um, the one assessment I asked you to take, called your creative styles, it tests, and the book goes through four different types of creativity. One is called imagination, and that's kind of the creation of new ideas. And this is sometimes what we associate with creativity, is the imagination stuff. But also, there's creativity associated with improvement, incrementally improving ideas and things. And some of us are better at that. Uh, being able to take situations and slowly improve them. Another one they call investment is uh, being fast, being first, being competitive. You're kind of you run with an idea, you get it out there to the marketplace first. You have that ability to invest quickly in something new. And then incubation refers to a creative activity that happens through teamwork or collaboration or involvement or cooperation. There's creativity that comes out of teams, etc. And each of you has a preference or an area in one of these four where you probably are, you could call yourself creative. And one of the reasons I like to do this for people in the class here is to get a sense of, don't just write off the fact that I might not be creative. Uh, you do have a certain creativity, and where does it lie? Um, so if you kind of look at this slide, the 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 four types of creativity, the incubation, if you can think of on these as two grids, flexibility and control on one axis, and internal and external. So in on the left-hand side, there's some of the creativity that is more internally oriented, is you're working with others to incubate and develop ideas. Or the improvement is you may have processes or things that are happening that you're trying to improve and incrementally getting them better. On the other side of the coin, where you're being more external with your creativity, the imagination is coming up with new ideas, transformational ideas, the new product, the new idea that gets out there. You're being new with something, and it requires flexibility. And on the other side, the control side is investment, uh, rapid achievement. You're quicker to the market than others. You're quicker to the solution. You're willing to take that risk. So these are how those four types of creativity may work out. And speed and magnitude of them are different. Incubation is slow. Imagination is large, and but could be magnitude is slow. So all of these creativity approaches take time and magnitude. The time frame is different than the magnitude. And each of you may be comfortable with different forms of creativity in your problem solving. So in terms of examples of situations where each approach is effective, in the incubation, existence of a diverse community with strong values, need for collective effort and consensus, a workforce that needs to come together. The improvement is you have requirements for quality, safety, reliability. High technical specialization is needed. It affects processes. People manufacturing chips, computer chips, people who are creative in the improvement area is very important. Imagination. Do you need brand new breakthrough products or ideas or services? And then the investment. Uh, are you in competitive environment? Is there an emphasis on bottom line? You got to be out there quickly. So, for each of you, I think it's important to, as you read this chapter, and that's kind of the part I wanted to highlight from this chapter for you, are for you to think of for yourself where you're creative. And then the rest of the chapter has some good ideas on some of the biases you may face, some of the conceptual blocks you might have to creativity. It has some good idea, there's good different kinds of exercises that you can go through. Uh, what I want to talk a little bit just quickly about, and I'm going to show a couple videos if I can get this to work. I want to talk about uh, leader decision-making styles. And the chapter doesn't talk about you as a leader and what style to take whenever you have to make a decision. And I want to talk about four of these, four styles. And think about your style or people you work for. And it's how a leader decides things. Basically, the big question is, should I make decisions purely on my own, or how much should I involve others in decision making? And that's the point I'm trying to get at. Uh, an autocratic leader, more autocratic, the leader makes decisions alone, not alone. Next is the consultative type of leader. This is the kind of leader who says, here's a problem we have. Uh, I want all of you to give me ideas. And the leader collects a lot of ideas from people, but then makes the decision on his own. In the facilitative style, the leader presents the problem, but also becomes part of the problem solving, seeks consensus, tries to, uh, he involves others in the decision. It becomes more of a collective decision. And then the delegative approach is the leader gives others or the group the responsibility for making the decision. I might say to you, hey, here's the problem. Make a decision, tell me what you want to do, and get back to me. And that's the facilitative. Now, the question is, which style should you choose? Um, well, the type of way you're going to approach a decision depends on 7 characteristics. How important is the decision? Is it a significant decision or not? Yes or no? How important is it that people be committed to the decision? Do you want people to really be committed? Yes or no? How much expertise do you, as the leader, have in making the decision? Do you have a lot of expertise? Uh, what is the likelihood of commitment? Even if you make the decision, is it going to make any difference or not? Are people may or may not get committed? What's the likelihood that people would be committed? Uh, the people you're making the decision with, how much do they share your objectives? How important is the expertise of the people working for you? And then how important is teamwork for the decision to be solved and the problem? So these are kind of 7 contextual factors to consider when you're making a decision. Maybe you're in an office making a decision and it's going to affect everyone in your office. Uh, are people going to sabotage you if they don't like the decision? So commitment's pretty important. So all of how you answer some of these questions determines which style you should use. And here is a chart. I sent this to you, and it's in the slides. Here is a chart. This is from a, a think. I'm blocking on the theory right now. The person, the people who developed this theory. I think it's the House theory of decision making, and I like it because it really, for you as a leader, you need to be adept at how you solve problems. And what this says, let's take a problem and you start over here at the left and you begin to ask the question, if the decision significance is high, you go on so you're up here and whoops, in this quadrant. And then you move over. If the importance of commitment is high, that's another factor, and you say it is. Let's say your expertise is low. Then you move down to this quadrant here. Okay, and what is the likelihood of commitment? What if it's very high? Uh, what if the shared objectives are high? People all want to do. Uh, and employee expertise is high and teamwork skills are high. That would turn out facilitative. But let's say you come here and you say likelihood of commitment is high, but shared objectives is low. That would move you over to a more consultative approach. That's how you read this. Does this make sense to people? And I kind of you're not necessarily going to you're not necessarily going to go through this in a structured way. But I think it's a good framework to keep in mind, especially the uh, context of the decision. Now, what I'm going to do, whoops, what I'm going to do for you now, as soon as I can bring up, I'm going to pause the recording. All right. Um, just the whole story. I think you got it. You understand the problem. There was a lot of pressure to bomb them right away, and then I gave you little snippets. But if I bring this, for some reason, when I screen share it I don't get to see you, so I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Um, oh, there I am. Okay, if you would walk down through this, anyone want to take a crack at which approach Kennedy should have taken and which one he did take? What do you think of the decision significance? I'm not even gonna, it was pretty significant. Uh, what about importance of commitment? Probably pretty low. Whoops. Uh, because he wasn't going to get, he's going to make a decision. He's going to upset half the people. So, uh, well, and then what about the leader expertise? It was low. And shared objectives was probably low. And how about the expertise of the people? He had high expertise. and teamwork skills weren't that good, which would lead he should do a consultative approach. That's one way of looking at it. If you go back another way and say importance of commitment is high, um, the leader expertise is low. Let's say the likelihood of commitment is high, but shared objectives are low because the generals didn't share. And Kennedy ultimately made a consultative approach. And the consultative is leader presents the problem, gets input, and then makes the decision. Do you know what his final decision was? You remember Kennedy's?
Blockade.
Yeah, they called it a quarantine. They blockade was one of the, but you're right, it was a blockade, and it was a pretty tense time. This is probably the closest we came to nuclear war. It was a pretty tense time. If we had bombed them outright, a preemptive strike, it probably would have led to war. But what happened was they were quarantining any ships from Russia coming, and they searched them and then turned them around, and then finally Khrushchev backed down. I know I moved through it a little quickly, but by the way, it's a good movie. If you ever want to watch it, it's called 13 Days. Uh, the but I think it shows you um, different scenarios when it comes to decision making. And I kind of like the model, and I just wanted to quickly introduce it to you tonight, to get a sense of it. Um, and then, any questions you have on that model? It'll be in the slides, and I sent you a little handout on it.
Uh, Sorry, Professor, could you just brush back over importance of commitment? Like, what is that? I'm struggling with what that really entails. Like,
Well,
well, yeah,
uh, let me bring that up, that slide again. Well, look, the importance of commitment is how important is it for the people who are going to have to implement this decision to be committed to it. And that one could go one of two ways. But like if you have a group of employees who are going to carry out an important task, or people that work for you, how important is it that they be committed? Because if it's real important that the job gets done well, that people put a lot of effort into it and are motivated to do it, then the importance of commitment would be high. And so, and how important is people who have to carry it out? How important is it for them to be really committed to put time and effort into it for it to succeed? There are some things that can happen in an organization where you have people carrying it out who could care less whether it gets done or not. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if that helps the distinction.
yeah, it does. I guess, can you just elaborate on why commitment wasn't as important in this particular situation? Was it that, the basically the president is the commander in chief, and it's really,
It's pretty much chain of command.
yeah, okay.
That's kind of what's my interpretation. Although you could say importance of commitment high and still come out with the consultative when you look at some of the other things like teamwork skills and all that. It pretty much consultative comes out, especially when you're dealing with an important decision. And sometimes a leader, if the situation is so significant, a leader may have to make the decision on his own, irrespective of what everyone thinks. And so,
All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
all right, let me go back to the slideshow a minute. just wrap up here. So basically, the book presents a model. If you're faced, the model the book is really trying to talk about here. If you're faced with a problem that where you have enough information and it seems like an outcome might be predictable or think something you need to do, if your answer is yes, you would use the analytical problem, a more rational problem solving mode. That, but if the problem is something where you're not sure what's going to happen based on your decision, and you don't know if you have enough information or not, you might be into looking at various creative approaches to try and solve it, either with groups or using one of the four approaches to creativity that we talked about. Um, so that's just a general framework, and that kind of is the framework of the text. Uh, that some of you may pick. Some people would say, I'd like to be a little more creative in my thinking about approaching my job, etc. And there are some good ideas in here on some different things you can do with groups and teams. A lot of us in work settings today are really faced with situations when we get to problem solving where we really have to be really collaborative and facile at working with other people. And that to me becomes more and more of an important skill. Um, so to foster creativity, let individuals work as alone as well as in teams and task forces. Uh, you know, the devil's advocate role, encourage people to present things that maybe go against the grain, um, and uh, separate competing groups or subgroups. Um, monitor and prod people, talk to customers, identify customer expectations, hold people accountable, use reward multiple roles. People who are sponsors and facilitators and rule breakers and idea champions. You know, you may have to look at be open to a lot of different ways to get at problem solving. So that's just a quick run through tonight of decision making. And I'm gonna what I'm gonna be finishing up with in 2 weeks uh, is I'm gonna be presenting to you a model for this problem solving that's not in the text. It's called problem framing. It's helping you become versatile in defining what problems are. So I'm going to do a little bit on you in 2 weeks on that. And we're just going to have the in-between session next week with the professor from communications, and I'll be working on a group decision making, but it really is looking at you in a group setting in terms of making a decision. Does anyone have any questions? I think almost everyone came tonight. And what I'll do, though, I'll be making the video available for everyone. All right. Anyone have any questions? All right. Good seeing you. I'm around if you have questions. Feel free to call, text, email. And I'll be looking forward to getting all your papers this week. Okay. And don't forget to be making sure you're picking those 2 skills you're going to be working on the rest of the semester. All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Professor.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.